Why aren't racing games accessible for the visually impaired? Hello, I'm Drup Designs, a visually impaired gamer, streamer and livery designer, and today we're going to be talking about accessibility in games, specifically in racing games. Over the last few years there's been a massive push on games developers to put accessibility options into games, and there's been quite a good response from titles like COD, The Last of Us, FIFA and Sea of Thieves, to name just a few. But racing titles seem to be getting excluded from this, and to me, games are meant to be something that you can do in the comfort of your own home that you can't do in real life. So if an activity isn't available to you in the real world, it should still be available to you in the virtual world. For many, including myself, racing games are the best way to get behind the wheel of a car on a regular basis when you can't do it in the real world. But not having accessibility in games, like the ability to change heads-up display and not being able to see any of the information given to you by the game, is a massive drawback. There's 7 games that I'm going to be talking through today, games that I've played in the past, some that I don't play anymore because of the visual aspect of it, and some that have incredible interaction and accessibility options. I'm not talking about any physics or gameplay of the games, simply how they are for someone with a visual impairment. Now, all of this is from my own experience, and so it's going to vary from person to person. Now, the games we're going to be going through are ACC, LMU, GT7, WRC, Automobilista 2, iRacing and Forza Motorsport. So there is quite a selection and variety of games, so let's get straight into it with ACC. So we are starting off with what I feel is the worst accessible racing game currently on the market. There is not many options to change things on the screen, and the colour choices of the fonts and the display I personally feel rather terrible. So simply just starting off in the top left hand corner of the screen with the lap times, it is a white font on a light grey background on what is here a very light sky. Impossible to see. There's no options in the menu to change where anything sits on the screen. There's no option for a higher contrast setting, which would really help with some of those displays. There's no way of scaling the head-up display either. We'll say there are good things, so where you've got the plus and minus, the delta of your lap time, that is quite bright and vibrant, so that is good, but the rest of it is all just very small, really small font and not adjustable, and this is one of the reasons why I stopped playing the game. The physics and the handling is very fun, it's a very fun game to play, but when you can't get information from the game and you can't see the gap to the cars in front, the gap to the cars behind, how much time you need to make upon a lap for qualifying, it takes away so much of the experience. Now moving on to LMU, the game that I've spent least time on in this entire list. Very similar to ACC in that all of the head-up display isn't really that adjustable. However, the colours and the contrast is slightly improved. While it is still very small font, I personally can't really see it, and there's no way of scaling that and making it bigger, there is at least a higher contrast. The background of the head-up display is that little bit darker. It's a dark grey as opposed to a lighter grey, which is in a lot of the ACC head-up display. Colours used for the tyre graphics are a good contrast, which is really good and helpful, but then you can't really see which driver therefore, other than using the logo, which is a good way of identifying different cars. So in the settings there is ways of adjusting what you have on the screen. As there is with most games, you can turn things on or off, but there's no way of scaling it. There is a HUD scale, but that didn't seem to change anything. I don't know if that's a fault with the game or if I just didn't notice a change when it was applied. LMU, I just felt a little bit let down by, especially with it being such a recent game as well, and coming out in the era of games developers implementing accessibility options. This kind of let me down a little bit. So, slight continuity error. While I was editing the video, realised I hadn't actually pressed record when I was talking about AMS2, which is what we're going to get into now. So, AMS2 Automobilista one of the best sims in the world. While the driving is fantastic, the heads-up display isn't the best. A few months ago I did a video trying to get a world record, and in doing so, when I crossed the line, the font was that small I didn't actually see the time until I'd then already gone round half another lap, crashed into a wall, stopped, and then I was able to actually look closer at the screen and see what time I'd got. So while it is very good, there's some super bright, vibrant colours. The display of how the tyres and brakes warm up is very good. You can move everything to exactly where you want it. There is no scale. It does have that darker background and the opacity for the heads-up display, which is really good. Clear font on like the positions and laps. And the dial there that I've got in the centre, but the numbers of the tyre temperatures and pressures and the current lap information with your delta times to the record and everything, and then when you're in a race with your delta to the car in front and behind, I just find impossible to see. And as I say, while I've found a way to move everything around, no way that I've found of scaling that. Now, what I will say, I do acknowledge that there are third-party overlays that you can get, such as Race Labs, where you can then have everything exactly where you want and at a scale that you want and you can read. But you shouldn't have to do that in a third-party software, which doesn't always have the best integration into a game to be able to enjoy a game. Back onto the consoles now, and we're on to GT7, the game that I've then spent the most time in out of the ones in the list. And graphically, it's beautiful, but there are still things that it can do a lot better. There's still no options for changing any settings on the screen, no way of adjusting the head-up display. There are some really bright, vivid colours which do really help and give you an indication. There are great things in this, like braking markers and racing lines, as there are in most games, which can help when learning a circuit for those with a visual impairment. But the leaderboard, and especially the positions and laps at the top left of the screen, there's no background to some of those. While there is a slight outline to the words and the letters and numbers, it's still very difficult to see, especially if you go into a clouded area where it's going to be white on white again. Just having a little bit of a background to that would make it so much easier, or an option to turn a background on. I think a lot of gamers that struggle visually will sacrifice a little bit of screen space in order to see the information, rather than missing vital information from the game and being able to see a cloud in the sky. But having that option to turn it on and off is going to change so much for so many gamers, giving them the option to customize it to their own personal need. So on to WRC, and a different style of motorsport, rallying, very different to circuit racing for many, many reasons. Now, the head-up display on this, while simplistic and you don't need as much information, you don't have a car in front or a car behind to worry about, the font and the size of this head-up display, I feel, is very good. It's quite large, which is fantastic. There's a colour coding system to the pace notes, so if you miss a call, you don't have to try and read what it says. You just look at the colour, and that'll let you know what speed roughly you need to go at. Speedometer is fantastic, just super big, bold font. High contrast, really good, and same with the timer up at the top right, which is a little bit covered by my overlay. And there's the stage progression on the left hand side of the screen, which changes colour. It's red if you're down on time, or green or yellow depending on if you're up. The vibrancy of the game and the head-up display is really good and crisp and clear. And so while you can't really change much, you can't change any positioning or scale again, straight out the box, it is quite good. For me anyway. I know it won't be good for others. I do believe there is a colourblind mode as well, which will change some of the colours and help in that aspect. So that is a small step towards accessibility for some people, but not everybody. We then move into iRacing, which has the most options so far of things we've seen. It's a very high contrast with the yellow font on a black background, which for me personally is my preferred font. It works for me. There's the high contrast. It's bright, but not too bright, so a white can sometimes glare in my eyes, whereas that yellow is a little bit softer, but still a high contrast to the background. You can move all of the display around to exactly where you want it. So for me, I have as much as possible over on the left-hand side of the screen because I see better left than I do right. And for the first one in these lists of games, you can scale the display to exactly how big you want it, and that is a game changer. The best racing game in terms of accessibility, I'm not talking about physics or anything else, is Forza Motorsport. This is the most accessible game I think I've ever played, not just racing, ever. There's so many options you can have in this. It's called blind driving assists they've got. So you can have car-to-car collision, steering guide. You can have the turn navigation where it reads out a circuit as if it is a rally stage, so it'll tell you if there's a hairpin, what direction it is, a chicane, a 6 left, a 4 right. It is fantastic. You can then also have countdowns in your ear, so it'll give you an audible tone or a beep or a sound when you need to be braking or turning or downshifting, and it's just incredible the information you can get from the game without seeing a thing. Changes the experience massively. Now, while I might not necessarily use all of those inputs and assists, it's so nice that they're there. You can also change the head-up display. So on standard, you do just have the white font onto the game as the HUD, but then you can have a high contrast and you can put a background on it, and you can change so many things, and you can customize the gaming experience to exactly what you want, which every game I feel should have. As I said at the start of the video, if something isn't accessible to you in real life, it should at least be accessible to you in the virtual world, and that is what Forza Motorsport has done perfectly. I genuinely feel this is the standard that the game should be at now, with all of these different options, giving players the choice of how they want to play the game that they spent their hard-earned money on. I feel this opens up the game to a whole new audience, people that will be nervous to try racing games, people that have struggled in the past because they can't see what's going on the screen. This opens up a whole new avenue and a whole new audience to experience the thrill of racing and motorsport. So let me know in the comments what you think of the accessibility options I've gone through today. Have you had any experiences, good or bad, yourself? And tag your favourite developer in the comments. Let's get the conversation rolling and bring accessibility options into racing games, making them more accessible for the visually impaired. Thank you so much for watching. Have a wonderful day and keep plodding on.